Well, hey there, and welcome back to Stuff in Excel. I'm Richard. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We really want to get as many subscribers as we can. And if you really like the video, click on that notification bell down at the bottom. That way, whenever I issue a new video, you'll be notified in case you want to go watch it. So what are we going to do in this video? Well, one of the most important skill sets in Excel is the ability to create what's called a table of data. Data tables have a lot of really unique characteristics and allow you to do a lot of really dynamic things with your data that you can't do when the data is in a raw data range format. So I'm going to show you how to create a very simple table in Excel, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of those functions and some of those characteristics. Okay, let's start with this raw data file. Now, this file is available to you if you go to the YouTube description section below the video and click on the link. You can download this Excel file and follow along with this video. So if you look at this data, we've got 5 columns of data and we've got about 37 rows of data that go down. Now, what we want to do is convert this to a table. Data in a raw form like this and just a data range like this is not going to be very useful to us. It's not very dynamic, and there's a lot of tools that we could apply if we had a table. So we're going to convert this to a table, and there's several ways to do it. First, how do you identify the data that's going to be in the table? Well, the way you might do it, start with, is click in cell A1, do a Control-Shift down arrow and Control-Shift right arrow, highlights the entire range of data. That's one way to do it. Of course, you could also do it just by clicking there and dragging and highlighting all the data. That can be a little tedious, especially if you've got thousands of rows. Another way to do that is just to click anywhere in the contiguous range of data. So a contiguous range of data is a group of data where all the rows and all the columns are right next to each other with no blank columns or no blank rows separating them. Now, when you have a range of data like this and you click anywhere inside the contiguous range, Excel will pick that entire range of data up automatically, so you don't have to actually highlight it all. The only time you'd want to do that is if you suspect you've got blank rows or blank columns, but you want to capture all that information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and click anywhere in this, and I'm going to go up to the Insert button, and you can see that it's up here on the top ribbon. We'll click on Insert, and then we'll go down. The third button from the left is the Table button, and we click on that, and the Table button will then bring up a little dialog box for us. So this dialog box is going to come up. It's going to ask us what our range is, and it's already identified our range for us. It's also going to ask, does my table have headers? And the answer to that is yes. If it is yes, if you've got headers and they're named, you want to make sure and click this box. By the way, you'll also notice that the range of data has moving dotted lines around it, which shows you visually that Excel has identified that entire group of data. So I'll hit OK, and that will create a table for me. Now, it changes the way the table looks, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Now, another way to do this, to get to this dialog box that creates the table, is again simply to click anywhere within the contiguous range of data or highlight the full range of data and just hit Control-T. And when you do, it automatically brings up that same Create Table dialog box. So you hit OK, and you've got this. Now, we're going to come back to this Table Design tab that's up here at the top, but I want you to pay attention right now, right at the very top of the screen, to this Table Styles. This allows you to change the colors. You can change them. It defaults to sort of this blue color, but you can do black and white. You can do orange. I kind of like this one right here. This is kind of nice. So I'll click on that. And you notice I've got my header line is highlighted, and then all the other lines have alternating colors. It makes the table and the data in that table a lot easier to read, particularly if you have a large table with a lot of columns and you want to be able to sort of look at an entire row. Now, some things about this table now that we have it. The first thing I want you to notice is that each column has a drop-down menu, and that drop-down menu is essentially a filter. So I can use this to filter, and let's go down and look at the bottom part first. I can filter this data. I can look just at 1 year, let's say just 2018. I may want to look at 2019, and I click 2019 off, or on, click 2018 off, and I can look at just 2019. I might want to look at a range of data. I may want to look at 2019, 2020, 2021, and I can select which data I'm looking at in the table. If I want to bring that back, I simply click that filter again and go to select all. I can do the same thing with, for instance, my quarter column. I can go through and collect, maybe I just want to look at quarter 1. Okay, and I can do that, or I can look at quarter 2, 3, or 4. So I can go back again, click select all, and that comes right back. Now, I typically would not want to use that particular filter for sales, cost of goods sold, or gross margin, but I might want to rearrange those by size. Okay. And so I might want to sort this by smallest to largest or largest to smallest. So if I did smallest to largest, I want you to notice that what's going to happen is when I click on this, all this data will get sorted. Now, if you remember when we did the original data sort, if I just tried to sort one column in a data sort, it's not going to sort everything else. It's just going to sort the one column I chose to sort. I have to go in and highlight the whole range and then sort by the column within that range. But it's already identified that this is a group of data. So if I click on the gross margin and I sort by smallest to largest, it's going to sort everything in the table. They hit that and see, there it went. Now, the downside of this particular sort is that this sort does not have a way to get out of it. So if I did this and then I also did largest to smallest, how do I get it back to my original sort, where I have 2018 quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4, 2019 quarters 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's real no way within this tool to get out of that. The only thing you do is go back and hit this undo button, and you got to only hit it the right number of times. So I'll hit it twice in this case, and I'm right back to the data that I had originally. So you have to be really careful with using the sort by smallest to largest or sort largest to smallest. If I was going to do that kind of sort, I would probably go up and do a regular data sort on the entire table. Now, the next thing I want you to notice is that with this, remember we went 37 rows, and we may want to scroll down and look at 2026, for example. Well, normally, if I did that with a regular range of data and I scroll down, I'm going to lose my headers. But in this case, because it's a table, when I start to scroll down, I want you to look and see what happens up here on the column row. And when I scroll down, I want you to look. Those headers moved up, didn't they? I did not lose those headers. So I lost A, B, C, and D and E, but I picked up. It moved up. The headers moved up into that row. So now I can keep scrolling, and the headers remain constant. If I go all the way back to the beginning, of course, the A, B, C, D, and E will come back, and the headers will move to row 1. But when I scroll down, even just one click, it's going to move those up. See that? So that was really pretty bad. Now, when I do that, you notice I also lost rows 2 and 3, which was kind of weird why it does that. So it's helpful, but it's only mildly helpful, right? But you can keep that. If you just start scrolling down, you want to scroll down a lot of rows, you'll notice that the column headers will stay up here on that top line. Now, down at the bottom, we've got this tool down here. And we can go down to the lower right cell. And the way we can do that, of course, if we're up here anywhere, we can do Control down arrow, right arrow, and we're in the lower right cell of the table. Whenever you're in the lower right cell of the table and you want to add a row to the table, you can hit Tab, and it will add a row automatically. So we might add 2027. Quarter 1, we'll call that, we'll say it's 17,750 for sales. We'll just say for discussion sake it's 9,000 in cost of goods sold. And you notice it automatically computes. It automatically carried down the formula for gross margin and computed gross margin for us. Another way to do this is simply to go to the bottom of the table and simply add 2027 second quarter, and you notice it automatically added a row for me, right? I didn't have to think about doing the Control T. I can do 17,700. We can do let's do 9,200 for cost of goods sold, and again it automatically computes my gross margin for me. So it sort of automatically does that. Pressing the tab when you're in the lower right cell will do it, but you can just go to the bottom of the table and add it as well. It's also interesting to note I can add a column in here. So if I wanted to add gross margin percentage, I hit enter, it automatically creates a column for that. And then watch this, when I create the formula, so gross margin percentage is going to be my gross margin divided by my sales. There's my formula. When I hit enter, it's going to copy that formula all the way down the table. And I can, of course, format that column if I wish. So I've added a column and I've added rows to this table, and the table automatically picks those up, keeps the formatting, and when I add a formula column, it'll automatically copy that column all the way down the page. Now let's look up here at this table design tab up here at the top. Now if you'll notice, if I clicked anywhere outside of the table, there is no table design tab. But when I click anywhere inside the table design tab shows up. And in the table design tab, when I click on it, it gives me some new options. So let's go all the way over to the far left and start there. I can name this table. Right now it's called Table 7, but I might not want to call it Table 7. I might want to call it My Sales. And so if I type in My Sales and hit enter, watch what happens. Oh, it gave me a warning. And this warning, if you read this, says the syntax of this name isn't correct. Verify that the name starts with a letter or underscore, does not include a space or character, and doesn't conflict with an existing name in the workbook. Well, notice it's got a space in there. So I have to remedy that. So I'll hit OK. Now, so I'm going to put instead, I'm going to put one my table. Make it all one word. Oh, it doesn't like that either. And the reason why is because I started it with a number. I can't do that. So what if I still want to call it my table? So I'll highlight this and we'll take that name out. And one thing we do either like my table, all one word, or if we really want that space in there, just use the underscore character and then table. It's fine with an underscore character. It will accept an underscore character, and you can do it. Now, one of the things I always do is I always start my table names with the word table. Now, the reason for that is that when I do the drop-down menu of data later, or of different variables, and we've seen this when we did the navigating video, when you navigate around a spreadsheet, if you do this for all your tables, it'll keep all your tables in one place. So when you want to go search for a particular table, you don't have to search the entire range of variable names. You can scroll down to the bottom where all the tables will be grouped together. So I'm going to call this table underscore sales. And when I do that, it's going to now rename that table. Resizing the table is kind of interesting, I guess. I don't really ever do that. Other tools that it has, summarizing with a pivot table. I can now take this table just by being clicked in it. I don't have to go back. One way I can create a pivot table is go to Insert and Pivot Table, but I don't have to do that. If I'm in the Table Design tab, I can just go Summarize with Pivot Table, and it will create the pivot table for me. And I've got a whole nother video on how to create pivot tables. I can also remove duplicates from my data range. So let's go down here to this cell right here and hit Tab. It's going to add a row for me. Oh, didn't do it. It's only going to do it if I'm at the bottom. But if I added a row in here, I can go click right here, insert. We'll insert a row. So let's go through and add some data to this table. And what I might do is I might add 2000. I'm going to actually copy the row above it. And I copied that row. Now maybe, and that can happen, right? You can get duplicate rows within this. So if I'm in this table, I hit remove duplicates. It will select, give me the option to select what I want to delete. In this case, I want to delete anything that has all these features the same. Okay. Otherwise, if you did, let's say you did just year, it's going to delete all the 2018s. I don't want to do that. That I didn't want to do. So let's undo that. And so, but that's because I deleted all sales is what I did. If I'm over here in 2018 and I did a delete duplicates, and I just clicked year, let's click all those off, and I just clicked year, excuse me, and it would delete just it delete those, and I don't want to do that. Maybe I want to delete just the stuff that is truly a duplicate row. So all I've got to do is click on my remove duplicates and click all the items, and anywhere where all that is duplicated, it will delete it. And there's only one row, and it removed that one duplicate value. So another thing I can do is I can convert this table back to a range of data. Now I'm not going to do that here because I want to show you some other things, but maybe I wanted to go back to the original way the data was, the original form of the data. So I could click on convert to range. Now the problem is it'll still look like this. The top column will still be orange with black text. It'll still have those alternating rows, but what it won't have is it won't have the capabilities of a table. Things like adding a row or adding a column will not work. Copying, it won't automatically copy the formulas down like you want it to. So that can be a little problematic. I'm not going to convert it back to a range right now, but you can do that. If you're looking to convert a bunch of data back to a range of data, a table back to a range, you go to the click in the table, go to table design, go down to convert to range. Another thing we can do is we can insert a slicer. Now, when I insert the slicer, essentially a slicer is a filter. So you remember when I went to these filters down here and I had these filters down here, right? And I had all that. Well, I can go create this same filter by inserting a slicer. And so I click on Insert Slicer, and it's going to ask me what kind of slicer do I want. I want one for year. And so now it gives me a visual slicer. It only shows each year once instead of showing all the years. But it's visible. It's on the screen all the time. It never goes away, and I can choose what I want. I can choose 2018, 2019, 2020. Notice I don't have to click things on and off. It automatically does that. Now, if I go up here and click on these lines with the check marks, I can click which ones I want, and it'll show me that. If I want to show all of them, I click that off. I can go click on the little funnel here with the X on it, and it'll bring back all of them just like that. So these slicers are kind of a nice tool to use. So go back to my table design box. There's a couple of other things I want to show you. We already looked at the table styles, but I want to look over here, table style options. So right now it default clicks, it adds a header row, it adds the banded rows, and it adds the filter button. It automatically does that. Now I can turn those off. I can turn the filter button off. I can turn it back on. I can turn off the banded rows, or I can turn them on. I can turn off the header row, or I can turn it back on. I don't know why you'd want to turn off the header row, but you can do it. Now, the other thing I can do is I can add a total row to this table. And when I click this, it automatically adds a total down here for my grand total of this. It's kind of weird what it added there. And I can show these if I wish. So if I click here, I can add that as I can add the sum. And I can also do it in the next cell. I can add the sum, and I can add the sum of this as well. And so now what I can do is I can refresh this. Okay, I can refresh this, refresh all, and it's going to update all my numbers. Now this particular, I don't know why it gave me 19.4. It added up all of them is what it did. But I don't want to sum those. I want to have the average, I guess, is 0.52. So now, if I tried to add a row to this, 2027, 3, notice it doesn't add the row now because the total is actually the bottom of the column. This is where you'd want to use that tab tool that I told you before. So if we're up at the top, if we go control down and to the right, it takes me up to, I can go up one, and it'll take me to that lower right cell of my data. Now when I hit tab, it's going to add a new row for me that way. That's when you would use that tab button, is when you've got this total line on there also. So that's another tool for you in the table the set of table tools that you have. So hopefully this is really helpful to you. Hopefully you learned something about tables you did not know by watching this video. Remember, if you like the video, please click the subscribe button below and click that notification bell so that when we issue new videos, you'll be sure to be alerted that a new video is available for you to watch. In the meantime, have a great day. We'll see you real soon right here on Stuff in Excel.